Time now for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Always good to see you, Al. What is the big story with the forecast this week?
Well, Troy, we actually had some precipitation this last week, and some of it was a little bit more than what the models were actually suggesting. And overall, if you look at this weekly totals from like last Saturday through this Saturday, we are essentially looking at anywhere from 2 to 3 inches in some selected spots in northeastern Nebraska, particularly that Niagara River Basin, the eastern portion of it that was under the D2, D3 rating. Also in the Omaha metropolitan area, and then we've seen a cluster of that type of precipitation around Grand Island, and anybody else in between pretty much was in that anywhere from a ½ inch to 2 inch range. The big losers were the southern panhandle and the southwestern Nebraska that really was anywhere from 0 to less than 0.2 of an inch of precipitation. We do have a couple opportunities for moisture this weekend, and then the heat returns in earnest, and it looks eerily similar to what we went through during the middle part of June. So let's take a look at the upper air models, and the first thing we'll draw your attention to, here's that dome of high pressure. Of course, a counterclockwise swirl around this will bring some monsoonal moisture up into the central Rockies, and this little trough moving across the northern plains may be just enough to induce some thunderstorm activity, particularly when you consider the surface low in southeastern Montana will slide toward the east. That will generate some thunderstorm activity through central Nebraska, and some of that will lift off toward the southeast during the daytime hours. And then as we get into tomorrow, that high pressure system starts to lift toward the north. The flow around the front side of it will bring moisture right back around the top of that ridge, and we may see some residual precipitation breaking out across portions of north central Nebraska and the panhandle, and this will again shift toward the southeast. By the time we get to Monday, now we start to see this ridge building toward the east. So our basically temperatures that are a little bit below normal will all of a sudden rapidly rise with this high pressure bringing in a southeasterly flow. So we'll see a little bit of that residual moisture during the morning hour, and that looks to be about it as we go through the remainder of the week as this high pressure system builds rapidly toward the northern plains. And that means that we'll be looking at widespread 90s to low 100s from western Nebraska all the way up into the northern plains. And you'll see that the majority of the precipitation will stay to our south. Now, as we get into Wednesday, the high starts to shift a little bit farther toward the east, and we'll start to see temperatures in eastern Nebraska moving up into the low to mid 90s, probably looking at upper 90s to low 100s across the panhandle. We see low pressure in northeastern Wyoming, but all the moisture return is going to be hanging down into Texas. By Thursday, this ridge builds all the way up into southern Canada. We do have a northerly flow on the east side of this ridge that will keep temperatures confined basically in the mid 90s across eastern Nebraska. We're still looking at upper 90s to low 100s across the western part of the state, and you notice no precipitation. And by Friday, this ridge reaches its peak, according to the models, as it moves all the way up into central Canada. Very hot conditions over across the northern plains, and we'll probably see some of that heat start to move into eastern Nebraska. Could easily be looking at upper 90s and maybe a few low 100s, particularly across the southern counties. As we go farther into the future, let's take us to next Thursday to the following Tuesday. That ridge still remains in place. We have temperatures below normal to our south, and in terms of precipitation, with that high pressure system in place, below normal. But notice the monsoon moisture. That looks like it starts to arrive as we get toward the end of the month, and that may break down this heat ridge.